My mother-in-law stood over my son's tiny coffin and screamed that I was a murderer. 6 months later, when the truth came out, she begged me not to call the police. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how a loving grandmother became the architect of our family's destruction, and how a handful of pretty pills shattered everything I thought I knew about trust. My name is Deanna. I'm 32 years old, and I used to believe that family meant safety. I was the school nurse at Riverside Elementary, the one kids ran to with scraped knees and stomach aches. Parents trusted me with their babies every day, but I couldn't protect my own son from the person who claimed to love him most. Bennett was 4 years old when he died. We called him Benny, and he was pure sunshine wrapped in dinosaur pajamas and sticky fingers. That morning, he'd shown me a rock he found in the backyard, convinced it was a real dragon egg. "Mommy, when it hatches, can we keep the dragon?" he asked, his blue eyes serious as a judge. I told him yes, of course we could keep the dragon. I never got to find out what he would have named it. His sister Rosalind was 6, my careful firstborn with brown eyes that noticed everything. She was the kind of child who arranged her crayons by color and always remembered where I left my keys. "Mommy's little helper," I called her, and she wore that title like a crown. The day Benny died, she was coloring a picture of our family. 4 stick figures and a dog we didn't have, but she desperately wanted. Normal childhood dreams on a piece of construction paper that would become evidence. My husband Philip worked as an accountant downtown, the kind of man who balanced our checkbook to the penny and never forgot to change the oil in our cars. We'd been married 8 years, together since college, living in the perfect suburban house his mother helped us buy. That house was supposed to be our forever home. Instead, it became a crime scene where nobody knew a crime had been committed. And then there was Judith, my mother-in-law, 58 years old, a retired pharmacist who kept her silver hair in a perfect bob and her opinions about my parenting in endless supply. She lived 3 blocks away, close enough to drop by unannounced, far enough to maintain the illusion of boundaries. Every Sunday, she brought her famous potato casserole and a new criticism disguised as helpful advice. "Deanna, dear, Benny seems hyperactive. Have you considered cutting sugar from his diet?" Or, "Rosalind is too quiet. You should enroll her in dance classes to bring her out of her shell." My younger sister Mallory was my lifeline, the only person who ever told Judith to back off. At 29, she was single, fierce, and devoted to being the fun aunt who snuck my kids extra dessert and taught them card games I pretended not to notice. "That woman would criticize the way you breathe if she could," Mallory would say after Sunday dinners. "Don't let her get in your head." But Judith was already in my head, planting seeds of doubt about every parenting decision I made. Was Benny too energetic? Was Rosalind too withdrawn? Was I working too much? Not enough? The questions multiplied like cells, spreading through my confidence until I second-guessed everything. The day it happened started with such ordinary moments. Benny spilled orange juice on his favorite T-Rex shirt at breakfast. Rosalind reminded me about her show and tell tomorrow. Philip kissed us all goodbye, running late for an early meeting. I was supposed to deep clean the house while the kids spent the day at Judith's. She'd offered the night before, patting my hand with her manicured fingers. "You look exhausted, dear. Let me take them for the day. You need a break." I should have said no. That's the thought that haunts me, the one that wakes me at 2:47 a.m. every night, the exact time Philip called to say Benny was at the hospital. I should have kept my babies with me. I should have trusted my instincts over her insistence. I should have known that sometimes the most dangerous people come bearing casseroles and calling you dear. But I didn't know. I kissed my children goodbye that morning, told them to be good for Grandma, and spent the last normal hours of my life scrubbing bathroom tile, unaware that 3 blocks away, my mother-in-law was handing my son his death disguised as candy, while my daughter watched and remembered every detail that would later save us all. Life in our suburban Minneapolis home was picture-perfect on paper. We had the 2-story colonial with blue shutters, the kind real estate agents call family-friendly, with its fenced backyard and tree-lined street. Philip and I had worked so hard for that life, saving every penny, taking extra shifts, dreaming about the family we'd raise behind those blue shutters. Benny was born on a snowy December morning, arriving 2 weeks early as if he couldn't wait to join the party. From day one, he was motion and noise, a tiny hurricane of enthusiasm who approached life like it was the best gift he'd ever received. By age 4, he'd developed an obsession with dinosaurs that bordered on scholarly. He knew the difference between a Parasaurolophus and a Corythosaurus, could tell you what period they lived in, what they ate, whether they were nice dinosaurs or mean ones. "This one's a Pachycephalosaurus, Mommy," he'd explain, holding up a plastic figure. "They bonked heads like rams, but not to be mean, just to say hello." Then he'd gently bonk his forehead against my knee, giggling at his own demonstration. Roslyn was different, born cautious and contemplative. While Benny charged through life, she observed it, processing everything through those watchful brown eyes. She'd organize Benny's dinosaurs by size while he napped, create elaborate stories with her dolls, where everyone followed the rules and nobody got hurt. At 6, she could already read chapter books, preferring to spend Saturday mornings curled beside me on the couch with Charlotte's Web or Matilda, while Benny built block towers just to knock them down. "Why does he do that, Mommy?" she asked once, watching her brother destroy his own creation with glee. "Because sometimes the fun is in the making, not the keeping," I told her, though I knew she'd never quite understand that philosophy. Philip was the stability between our two extremes. Every evening at 6:15, his car would pull into the driveway. By 6:17, Benny would be climbing him like a jungle gym while Roslyn waited her turn for a proper hug. We'd eat dinner together at the round kitchen table, Philip asking about everyone's day with genuine interest, making even Benny's rambling stories about playground adventures seem important. "And then Tommy said dinosaurs aren't real anymore, but I told him they're just sleeping in rocks," Benny would report, spaghetti sauce on his chin. "That's one theory," Philip would say seriously. "What do you think, Roslyn?" She'd consider carefully. "I think they became birds. That's what my library book says." This was our rhythm, our normal. Breakfast chaos, work and school, evening reunions, bedtime stories. Weekends at the park, grocery shopping with 2 kids arguing over cereal choices, family movie nights where Benny always fell asleep halfway through. But Sundays belonged to Judith. She'd arrive at 4 o'clock sharp, carrying her covered casserole dish like a passport to our home. The routine never varied. She'd kiss Philip first, her beloved son, then acknowledge me with an air kiss that never quite touched my cheek. The children would receive real hugs, though I noticed she held Benny a beat longer than Roslyn, smoothing his wild hair with proprietary hands. "How's my best boy?" she'd coo, and I'd bite my tongue at the favoritism. During dinner, she'd pepper me with questions disguised as conversation. "Are you still working full-time, Deanna? It must be so hard on the children." Or, I read an article about limiting screen time. "How many hours do you allow?" Philip never seemed to hear the edge in her voice, the subtle implications that I was failing our children by having a career, by not being whatever impossible standard she'd set in her mind. When I'd bring it up later, he'd wave it off. "She raised 3 kids practically alone after Dad died. She just wants to share her experience." But Judith's experience was from a different era, when mothers stayed home and children were seen but not heard. She'd watch with barely concealed disapproval as I negotiated with Benny about vegetables, as I let Roslyn choose her own clothes, even when they didn't match. "Structure, Deanna," she'd say, helping clear plates I hadn't asked her to touch. Children thrive on structure and clear boundaries. When Philip and his siblings were young, they knew exactly what was expected. No negotiations, no debates. Yet for all her criticism, she loved being Grandma. She'd bring small toys from the dollar store, sugar-free candies she insisted were healthier, books she thought were more appropriate than the ones I chose. The children adored her, especially Benny, who saw only the treats and attention, not the undermining of his mother that came with them. Looking back, I can see the signs I missed. The way Benny was always calmer after visiting her. How Roslyn would sometimes say her stomach felt funny after Grandma's house. I attributed it to too many treats, to the excitement of a different routine. I never imagined the truth. That Tuesday started like any other. I woke up to Benny standing beside my bed, his dinosaur pajamas twisted from sleep, holding his favorite velociraptor. "Mommy, can raptors eat pancakes?" he asked, as if this was the most urgent question in the world. "Only on Tuesdays," I told him, pulling him into bed for a quick snuggle before the day began. Rosalind was already dressed when we came downstairs, her hair neatly brushed, wearing the purple dress she'd laid out the night before. She'd set the table for breakfast, each placemat perfectly aligned. "I made you coffee, Mommy," she announced proudly, pointing to my favorite mug filled with lukewarm water and a heaping spoonful of instant coffee floating on top. "It's perfect, baby. Thank you." I'd taken a sick day from the school clinic, planning to deep clean while the kids were at Judith's. The house had been chaos lately with end-of-school-year events, and I desperately needed to catch up. When Judith called Monday night offering to take them for the full day, I'd hesitated. "You need a break, Deanna," she'd insisted. "I can see how worn out you are. Let me help. The children love spending time with me, and you can get things done without interruption." Philip had agreed. "Take the help, honey. Mom's right. You've been running yourself ragged." So that morning, I packed their bags with snacks, water bottles, and changes of clothes. Benny insisted on bringing 3 dinosaurs for protection, and Rosalind carefully placed her coloring book and new 64-count crayons in her backpack. "Be good for Grandma," I said, kissing them both at Judith's front door. "We're always good, Mommy," Benny said, already pulling toward the living room where Judith kept a special basket of toys just for them. Judith stood in the doorway, immaculate as always in pressed khakis and a coral sweater. "Don't worry about a thing. We'll have a wonderful day. Go enjoy your peace and quiet." I spent the morning scrubbing bathrooms, organizing closets, finally tackling the playroom that looked like a dinosaur battlefield. I was folding laundry when my phone rang at 2:47 p.m. Philip's name on the screen made me smile. He never called during work. "Hey, honey, what's—" "Deanna, it's Mom." His voice was wrong, all wrong, hollow and stretched thin. "Benny's at the hospital. He choked on something. You need to come now." The drive to Minneapolis Children's Hospital was both instant and eternal. I ran red lights, my hands shaking on the wheel, prayers I hadn't said since childhood spilling from my lips. "Please, God, please let him be okay. He's just a baby. Please." I found them in the pediatric ICU waiting room. Judith sat holding Rosalind, who looked impossibly small in the oversized chair. Philip was pacing, his tie loosened, shirt untucked. His sister Nora was there, and his brother Thomas, though I couldn't process how they'd arrived so quickly. "Where is he? Where's my baby?" I pushed past them toward the ICU doors. Judith grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "This is why I told you not to leave candy lying around the house. He got into your purse when I was helping Rosalind with her coloring." "What? I don't keep candy in my purse?" "Don't lie now." Her voice rose to nearly a shriek. "The paramedics found red candy pieces. I tried to get them out, but he'd already swallowed some. You never watched him properly. You were always too busy with your work, always distracted. I told you children need supervision every second." "Mom, stop," Philip said weakly, but she was building momentum. "That child was always putting things in his mouth because you never taught him better. Too permissive, too lazy to set proper boundaries. And now look what's happened." The double doors opened. A doctor in scrubs emerged, and I knew from his face. I knew before he opened his mouth, before he said the words that would divide my life into before and after. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm Dr. Hendricks. We need to talk about Bennett." He led us to a small room with a box of tissues on every surface. The words came in fragments my mind couldn't assemble into meaning. Couldn't clear the airway completely. Too much swelling. Cardiac arrest. Did everything we could. So very sorry. Benny died at 3:23 p.m. I didn't get to hold him. I didn't get to say goodbye. He died surrounded by strangers trying to save him while I was at home folding his dinosaur sheets, organizing his toys, preparing his room for a boy who would never come home. The last thing I'd said to him was, "Be good." The last thing he'd said to me was, "We're always good, Mommy." He was. He was always good. He was perfect. The funeral was a blur of black clothes and casseroles, hushed voices, and the sickly, sweet smell of lilies. Benny looked wrong in the tiny suit Judith had insisted on buying. Nothing like the wild-haired boy who lived in dinosaur pajamas. I'd wanted to bury him in his T-Rex shirt, but Philip said his mother was right, that Benny should look presentable. "Presentable for who?" I'd screamed. "He's 4 years old. He's my baby." But I lost that fight, like I was losing everything else. At the service, Judith positioned herself as the grieving grandmother, accepting condolences like a receiving line while I sat frozen in the front row. When people approached me, she'd intercept them. "Deanna's not doing well," she'd whisper. "The guilt, you understand. When a mother's negligence causes something like this, the burden is unbearable." The whispers spread through the church like poison. I could feel the shift in how people looked at me, sympathy morphing into judgment. Philip's family closed ranks around Judith. His sister Nora cornered me by the bathroom. "Deanna, we're all grieving, but you need to take responsibility. Mom says you regularly left Candy within reach." "That's not true. I never—" "Denial won't bring him back," she said, walking away before I could respond. 2 weeks after the funeral, I came home from the grocery store to find Philip packing suitcases in our bedroom, not his clothes, Rosalind's. "What are you doing?" He wouldn't look at me. "Mom thinks it's best if Rosalind stays with her for a while, just temporarily. She needs stability right now, and you're barely functioning." "She needs her mother." "Does she?" He finally met my eyes, and the hatred there knocked the breath from my lungs. Her mother who couldn't keep her brother safe, who left Candy where a 4-year-old could reach it. "Every time I look at you, Deanna, I see him choking while you weren't there, while you were home cleaning instead of watching our son. I wasn't even there. Your mother was watching him. Because you asked her to. Because you needed a break, always needing breaks, always too tired, too busy, too something to just be a mother." He left that night with Rosalind, who clung to me at the door. "I don't want to go, Mommy. Please don't make me go." "It's just for a few days, baby," I lied, smoothing her hair. "Be good for Daddy and Grandma." Those few days turned into weeks. Philip served me with separation papers. Judith filed for grandparent rights, claiming I was an unfit mother drowning in grief and guilt. My visiting time with Rosalind was reduced to supervised hours at Judith's house, where she'd hover over us, correcting everything I said or did. "Don't fill her head with fantasies," she'd snap when I read Rosalind's stories. "Children need truth, not fairy tales." The house became a mausoleum. I'd sit in Benny's room for hours, holding his stuffed stegosaurus, breathing in the fading scent of him on his pillow. Only Mallory still came by, bringing food I couldn't eat, sitting with me in silence when words were too heavy. One night, she found me sorting through my purse obsessively, the same purse Judith claimed had contained the candy. "Deanna, this is insane. Look at this. Tissues, hand sanitizer, glucose tablets for your diabetes, EpiPen, house keys. Where's all this candy you supposedly had?" She said the paramedics found red pieces. "Red candy that you, allergic to red dye, number 40, just happened to have? When did you suddenly start carrying around something that could kill you?" That stopped me cold. She was right. I hadn't thought about it in the fog of grief, but I never ate anything red, never bought anything red. One accidental ingestion in college had taught me that lesson with hives and a trip to the ER. "I need the autopsy report," I said, something sparking alive in my chest for the first time in weeks. "Now you're thinking," Mallory said. "Something's not right here. Fight back, Deanna." I called the medical examiner's office the next morning, then again that afternoon, then every day for a week until they knew my voice. "These things take time, Mrs. Patterson. Full toxicology, detailed analysis. It could be 6 to 8 months. My daughter needs me now. My husband is leaving me now. I'm losing everything now." "I understand, but we have procedures. The case isn't marked as suspicious, so it's not priority." I started documenting everything I could remember. What Benny ate for breakfast that day, what was in his backpack, every word Judith had said at the hospital. I made lists of every candy I knew of that came in red. Hot tamales, Swedish fish, Twizzlers, Red Hots. None of it made sense. Even if I'd had any of those, Benny knew not to take things without asking. I'd trained both kids about stranger danger, about not eating unknown substances, about asking before taking any food. Something was wrong with this story. I just needed time to prove it. 8 months had passed since Benny's death. 8 months of empty bedrooms and lawyers' offices, of supervised visits where I could barely hug my daughter without Judith critiquing my technique. The divorce papers sat on my kitchen counter next to foreclosure warnings because I couldn't afford the mortgage alone. I'd lost 20 pounds, stopped answering calls from concerned coworkers, existed on coffee and the sheer determination to prove I wasn't the monster they'd painted me to be. The medical examiner's office called on a Thursday afternoon while rain hammered against the windows. "Mrs. Patterson, your son's complete autopsy report is ready for pickup." I drove through the storm, hydroplaning twice, not caring if I wrapped my car around a tree as long as I got there first. The clerk handed me a manila envelope that weighed nothing and everything simultaneously. I sat in my car in the parking garage, rain thundering on the roof, and tore it open. Pages of medical terminology, measurements, observations. Then I found it. The toxicology report. Foreign body obstruction identified as multiple tablets of phenobarbital, partially dissolved, coated in red confectionery shell, marketed under brand name Luminal, commonly prescribed for seizure disorders, an essential tremor. Tablets modified with candy coating to appear as confectionery items. Phenobarbital. Judith's medication. I remembered now with crystal clarity. Sunday dinners where she'd excuse herself to take her nerve pills, the distinctive white bottle she kept in her purse. "For my tremor," she'd explained once when Rosalind asked about the pretty red pills, "Grandma's special medicine." My hands shook so violently I could barely start the car. I drove straight to Judith's house through the rain, the report clutched against the steering wheel. No plan, no script, just rage so pure it burned through 8 months of grief and guilt. Philip answered the door, Rosalind beside him in pajamas, though it was only 6 in the evening. My daughter looked thinner, pale, her spark dimmed to barely an ember. "Deanna, it's not your visitation day. We need to talk. Now." Something in my voice made him step back. I pushed past him into the living room where Judith sat in her recliner, working on a crossword puzzle as if the world hadn't ended 8 months ago. I slammed the report on the coffee table. "Read it. Deanna, really, this dramatics. Read it." Philip picked up the papers, his face changing as he processed the words. "Mom, what is phenobarbital?" Judith's pencil stopped moving. "It's my medication. You know that." "It wasn't candy," I said, my voice deadly calm. "The red pieces the paramedics found. It was your medication, Judith. Your pills killed my son." The pencil fell from her hand. "That's impossible. That's absolutely impossible." "Phenobarbital tablets with red candy coating. Your specialty medication that you kept talking about. The ones the pharmacy made special for you because you couldn't swallow regular pills." "Grandma gave Benny the pretty pills." Every head in the room snapped toward Rosalind. She stood in the doorway, her small voice cutting through the tension like a scalpel. "What did you say, baby?" I moved toward her, but she was looking at Judith. "From her special bottle. The red ones that looked like candy. She gave them to Benny when we were coloring. She said they were treats for being good when you weren't there, Mommy. She said you didn't allow treats, but Grandma's were different. She told me not to tell because you'd be jealous I didn't get any." "Rosalind, sweetheart, you're confused," Judith started, but Philip was already moving, pulling Rosalind against him protectively. "She gave them to him before, too," Rosalind continued, the words pouring out like a dam breaking. "Lots of times. She said they helped him be a good boy, not so wild. She said Mommy would be happier if Benny was calmer, but we couldn't tell, or Mommy would take away Grandma's special medicine." The room went silent except for the rain against the windows. Philip's face had gone gray, his arms tightening around Rosalind as if Judith might snatch her away. "Mom," he whispered, "tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't give my son your prescription medication." Judith's mouth opened and closed, her carefully composed face crumbling. "I thought they were breath mints. The pharmacy gave me the wrong bottle once. They looked like candy. Red candy coating, I didn't know." "You didn't know?" My voice was rising. "You're a retired pharmacist. You didn't know you were giving a 4-year-old phenobarbital? It was an accident, a mistake. But if you'd been watching him properly, if you'd been there instead of always pawning them off on me, you offered to watch them. You insisted. You said I looked tired, said I needed a break. Because you did. You were failing as a mother, both children running wild, no discipline, no structure. I was helping. The medication calmed him down, made him manageable." The admission hung in the air like a noose. Even she realized what she'd just confessed, her hand flying to cover her mouth. "You knew?" Philip said, his voice broken. "You knew exactly what you were giving him." "Please don't call the police," Judith begged, actually dropping to her knees on her own living room carpet. "It was an accident. I never meant to hurt him. I loved that boy more than anything." "You loved controlling him," I said, pulling out my phone. "You loved the idea of a grandson who sat still and stayed quiet. You drugged my baby because he was too alive for your comfort." The 911 call was brief. Child's death 8 months prior. New evidence of poisoning. Confession recorded on my phone. They arrived within minutes, 2 officers who looked barely older than college students taking Judith away in handcuffs while she sobbed about accidents and good intentions. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution revealed Judith had been medicating both children for nearly a year. Rosalind's mysterious stomach aches after Grandma's house, side effects from smaller doses, Benny's unusual calmness after visits, the pills working as intended. She genuinely believed she was helping, creating better-behaved grandchildren her son could be proud of. The pharmacy records showed she'd been refilling her prescription twice as often as she should have needed to. When questioned, she admitted to crushing pills into juice, hiding them in pudding, and yes, giving them whole as special treats only grandparents could provide. "I was trying to help Deanna," she testified, still unable to see her crime. She was overwhelmed. The children were suffering from lack of discipline. A little medication to calm them down seemed harmless. She got 3 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter and child endangerment. The judge called her actions a grotesque violation of trust and retroactively revoked her pharmacy license. 3 years for a lifetime without my son. It didn't feel like justice, but then nothing could. Philip tried to salvage our marriage. He showed up at the house with flowers, with apologies, with tears I'd never seen him cry before. "I should have believed you," he said, kneeling beside my chair one evening. "I should have stood by you. When you needed me most, I chose my mother. I failed you in every way a husband could fail." "You didn't just fail me," I told him. "You abandoned me. You took my daughter when I was drowning. You let your family call me a murderer. You looked at me with such hatred, Philip. I can't unsee that look. Please, Deanna, for Rosalind. Rosalind deserves better than parents who stay together out of guilt. We're done." The divorce was finalized 6 months after Judith's conviction. I got primary custody of Rosalind, the house, and a formal written apology from Philip that I never asked for, but he insisted on providing. He sees Rosalind every other weekend, picks her up from school on Wednesdays. We're civil, even friendly sometimes, but the trust is gone forever. Mallory helped us move across town, away from the memories that haunted every corner. Our new apartment is smaller but brighter, with a view of a park where Rosalind likes to read under the oak trees. She's in therapy twice a week, working through the guilt of not telling anyone about the pretty pills sooner. "I thought I was being good by keeping the secret," she told me one night, curled against my side on the couch. "Grandma said good girls don't tattle." "Good girls protect their brothers," I told her. "You were too little to understand what was happening. None of this was your fault." "Was it Grandma's fault?" I thought carefully about my answer. Grandma made dangerous choices because she thought she knew better than everyone else. She hurt people she claimed to love because she cared more about control than safety. Yes, baby, it was Grandma's fault. I still work as a school nurse, but now I look at children differently. I document everything, question every unexplained symptom, double-check every medication log. When grandparents pick up sick kids, I watch for signs I missed before. Not every danger announces itself. Sometimes it comes wrapped in love and good intentions. Last month, on what would have been Benny's 6th birthday, Rosalind and I went to his grave with a toy T-Rex and a chocolate cupcake. "Do you think he knows we miss him?" Rosalind asked, arranging the dinosaur just so against his headstone. "I think he knows we love him," I said, "forever and always." "Mom, are you still sad?" "Every day. But I'm grateful too. Grateful I had him for 4 years. Grateful you're here with me. Grateful the truth finally came out." We stood there as the sun set, my daughter's hand in mine, 2 survivors of a grandmother's twisted love. The hardest lesson I've learned? Sometimes the people who claim to love you most are the ones capable of the greatest harm. Trust is precious and fragile, and once broken, can never fully heal. But we're healing anyway, Roslyn and I, one day at a time. If you found this story compelling, please share it with others who need to hear that mothers' instincts are usually right. Like this video if it resonated with you, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true stories of survival, justice, and the strength to rebuild after unimaginable loss. Your comments mean everything, so please share your thoughts below. Thank you for listening to our story.